Hello and welcome to session DT114, New Tools and Features for System Conversions. My name is Tobias Futterer. I am part of the global SAP S4HANA movement team here at SAP. And one of the focus topics of my teams is to improve the tools and processes which are used during S4HANA implementation projects. Today, I have the pleasure to give a talk on recent additions and new features and capabilities of SAP tools which can be used in S4 conversion projects. However, some of the tools might also be of use during S4HANA upgrade projects. So let's jump right in. When one comes to speak about S4HANA conversions, there are a lot of topics to mention, starting with simplification items, which explain differences of functionalities comparing S4 and ECC. There's custom code, which has to be adjusted to those differences. There's SAP Fiori, which is a new default UI technology. There's conversions to new data models in finance and SD. There's SAP HANA as a new database. And of course, there's the SAP Readiness check, which gives an overview of many of the topics that I just mentioned. And there are many more. Unfortunately, I won't have the time to talk about all of these interesting and relevant topics. My goal for today is to introduce key tools and utilities which will be of help during your system conversion project. So we're doing a top 10 tools from SAP which make your conversion easier. Specifically, I will focus on the tools which we have provided in the recent past and which enhancements we are planning for the future. So we hope that these tools will decrease the efforts in your S4 projects and improve the overall TCI. Starting with my number one topic for today, which is the so-called Technical Downtime Optimization app. As we all know, downtime is a very sensitive topic, and any business today depends on its ERP system, and it usually takes a lot of effort and energy to set up contingency plans for when a system goes unavailable. And often companies shut down processes or even process chains during big maintenance events. And with that in mind, you want to keep the scheduled downtime to a minimum because the business will be very thankful to simply any hour and any minute you can spare them and that you can take off during a project cutover. However, disregarding this reality, at the same time, we see that many projects do not even attempt to optimize the downtime and simply go with the default settings. The problem is, however, that the default settings are designed for standard systems for medium size and systems usually with less than 1 terabyte. For larger systems, there are a lot of optimization options, for example, a number of processes to schedule, the sequence of copying the data, and so on and so forth. And we know that there's multiple factors why projects do not attempt to adjust these parameters, being it a knowledge problem or uncertainty of the impact, or simply because there's no time to test the new setup and until the best setup is found. So now long overdue, SAP has an app in the support launchpad, which will help you with this job of optimizing the downtime. And in short, it analyzes the log files of your software update manager run and gives you recommendations to optimize certain phases. How can you do this? You can either submit the logs directly from the last sum screen at the end of the conversion run, or alternatively, you go into the app and upload it directly into it. And once you're in the support launchpad and you log into the app, you will find your results and you will find tips and tricks on how to optimize the phases. So the app provides analytical views with an intuitive user experience. It incorporates some simulation capabilities wherever possible and gives you very specific recommendations for your scenario from an up-to-date knowledge base. And the best part is it doesn't come at extra cost. It's included in your SAP support offering. So feel free to check out the links at the bottom of the page and let the app help you to cut down the downtime of your upcoming projects. And please share your results with us. This will help to increase our data on conversion and maintenance projects and will likely help you and others in the future with an even better forecast. And these forecasting capabilities I will talk about in a bit. For now, we jump to number 2, another feature that's part of the SUM tool, the so-called Prerequisite check extended. It's an option which is newly introduced and will execute most of the technical prerequisite steps of a conversion or upgrade project. So when you normally start your conversion or your maintenance project, you go into SAP Maintenance Planner, you download for your software from there and your stack XML file, which basically describes your target installation. And from there, you start the SUM tool and the SUM process. And as you may know, at the beginning of these runs, the SUM tool runs excessive checks on the system itself to detect any kinds of issues before entering the downtime and actually doing the real work. So in the past, when SUM detects an issue, it stops and interrupts the process until the issue is fixed. This behavior is by design and is there for a good reason, because only that way we can ensure that all prerequisites are met. For example, mismatch of OSDB versions, inactive objects in the existing source systems, failed simplification item checks, you name it. There's multiple checks, and the downside of this behavior in the past was that you had to go from issue to issue, which could be a bit frustrating because you could only see the current blocking point and not the ones that are following up. And obviously, often you could work on these topics at the same time, which would save time. So finally, we thought it would be a good idea to improve this user experience. And since the newer version, starting with SUM 2.0 SP8, you have the possibility to do an end-to-end run, which would detect all these possible issues that may occur and give you a list of things you need to fix. Prerequisite check extended can be selected during the start of your SUM run, and you can run this on any kind of system, a dev or QA system, weeks before you start your actual real, for example, sandbox conversion, and then you can make sure you don't have any surprises coming up during that first run. So much for the SUM tool. Let's jump to number 3, the so-called CVI cockpit for business partner conversion. CVI here stands for customer and vendor integration. And as you may know, one of the prerequisites for the S/4HANA conversion is that you switch from the traditional customer and vendor data model to the business partner data model. Because in S4, the leading master data entity is the business partner and not the customer and vendor. However, the tricky part is that the customer and vendor entities are not eliminated. They still exist within the solution because there are many applications within S4 that still depend on them. And this may also be true for your custom solutions. So SAP's solution for the time being is to, until the customer and vendor model is switched off, is to integrate both data models. And this is where the CVI comes into play. It synchronizes the customer and vendor records with the business partner and vice versa, and ensures that also over time, these records are kept consistent and do not deviate. Fortunately, there's now a utility called CVI Cockpit to support you with the initial setup of this synchronization. And it tells you very specifically what needs to be done and in which order. It takes you through the individual phases of this mini project and allows you to track the progress and also offers useful links and important SAP notes. There's not much more to say about this than simply use it. Again, there's links at the bottom to blogs and SAP notes to get further information on this very useful feature. My number 4 for today is also related to the business partner topic and its conversion. And it's actually about a very boring topic, which we can now overcome quite easily. Because what we saw at customers during the first conversions was that especially the customers with older and grown systems, they had accumulated quite a significant amount of inconsistencies in their master data. So over years, for example, the address data and the zip code were somewhat wrong and were never fixed. There might be small mistakes when numbers are interchanged. The issue is now that during this conversion process, a lot of excessive checks are applied on the master data, and all of these issues that were dormant for years now suddenly come up. And there's no avoiding it because the system expects consistent data, which will also benefit you, and which will also be beneficial for you in the future. But of course, cleansing this data is manual labor and is a toil. To be fair, we don't see this issue in all systems, but we often see it in companies from specific industries like the utilities or telecommunications industry, because they have a very large customer base. So what's our solution for this problem? There's multiple options. The one that I want to highlight here is the SAP Data Quality Management solution with its attached microservices. So here you install an add-on to your existing SAP ERP system, the SAP Data Quality Management add-on. You configure it for any of the 3 supported service providers, and the default option here is the microservice offered on SAP Cloud Platform. And once you've done the basic setup, it works quite simple. Yeah, you run the report, CVI migration pre-check. It gives you all the erroneous and inconsistent records, and basically in the background then calls the data quality management solution and proposes corrections for the faulty addresses. So with this tool and the microservice in the background, it only costs a few cents to fix one record. So if this is a challenge that you see in your system, please explore this option further. Coming to my number 5, which is about the financial data conversion. As you know, the finance data model in S4 is much more simple compared to ECC, and SAP has eliminated a lot of redundancies in the data model. So quite a few of tables are obsolete in the background. And now that you have to move from the old redundant data model to the new one, you may see some inconsistencies in the old data records. As we studied these inconsistencies like customers, we learned that a lot of customers have some really creative postings in their systems, and this is often due to past issues, for example, in closing processes. And, as a rule, these inconsistencies don't affect your past profit and loss statements for the past years, but nevertheless, as part of the conversion, all of the financial postings need to be consistent and adhere to our rules before they can be taken over to the new data model. And of course, you want to have these inconsistencies listed quite early in the project and not when you're in the middle of your first conversion and basically your entire project team is waiting for the system to start their work. So in the past, the only way to identify these inconsistencies was actually to do a test conversion in a sandbox environment, for example. But recently we've added new transactions, and they're listed on the slide here, which will do this already on your source ERP systems on NADB and can be executed before the conversion is even started. So you can get a head start in this area. Yeah, as already mentioned, I listed the transactions on the slide. And also links to a knowledge base article on how to deal with the most frequent errors. Please keep in mind that these checks will take some time to run because those are usually the larger tables that are being analyzed in the system, and full table scan just takes its time. For now, we cover the area of general ledger. However, we plan to extend this to the material ledger and asset accounting area in the future. So watch out for those changes. The next topic I want to mention are the capabilities which are part of the ABAP development tool suite, which we have introduced in the recent months and are continuing to improve. So the ADT suite is a multi-purpose set of tools which are useful for any kinds of ABAP development, but especially for S4HANA conversions, they give you very useful capabilities. So when you're preparing a S4 conversion project, you will have to find out what S4 means to your custom code base. What you will have to do is run code inspection checks with the SAP Code Inspector to actually identify which parts of your custom code are impacted by S4. For example, your custom code might need to be adapted to the new data model in finance, or it has to be adjusted to be compatible to our new database, SAP HANA. These code checks are integrated into the ABAP test cockpit, or in short ATC, and those results of these ATC runs are integrated in the ABAP development tool suite for Eclipse. And you can navigate through this result set to adjust your custom code when your conversion project is underway. That functionality is not very new and it's been around for quite some time, but what we have included in the recent time was that we have now automation capabilities in the tool suite to automate custom code adjustments. These so-called quick fixes are available for custom code adjustments, which are relatively common and always follow the same logic. So for example, with SAP HANA, you have to add an order by statement to guarantee that all of the records always follow the same order in the result set and that there's no different orders within the same statement. So for example, this is available as a quick fix, and the order by statement is automatically added at the end of SQL statements. SAP has provided and is still providing new quick fixes for multiple domains like the financial data model, the pricing data model changes, and so on. So there will be more to come. And what we see actually from the past experience is that up to 60% of custom code findings may be automated with quick fixes. However, obviously this number relies on your specific custom code base and it can vary from customer to customer. But there's definitely some potential for each and every customer. Again, please check the references to learn more about this automation capability. And before I jump to the next slide, I want to mention what is even better than automated custom code adaptation. It's actually not having to do it at all. And what we see on customer systems is that on average, up to 30% of custom code is actually not used. So ideally, you don't have to adjust it. And you can simply get rid of it. As mentioned, I have this on my next slide, which talks about deleting unused code. And many customers actually have the objective to reduce their custom enhancements and get closer to SAP standard. Let's call it they try to get a clean core or go back to standard. And the move to S4 offers this unique possibility to do this. As anyways, you have to do a lot of analysis into your custom solutions to adapt them. However, for whatever reason, not all custom extensions might be replaced with SAP standard functionality. So let us focus now on what actually definitely can be removed. This is the unused code. As just mentioned, in an average system, 30 to 60% of custom code is never used. It's code that has been copied from SAP standard for testing purposes. It was created because it might have been thought to be necessary, but then never went live from a business perspective, or it's simply a one-time solution that was implemented, but it has become obsolete. Whatever the reason, it's a known fact that unused code exists within a customer system. And SAP has now provided a custom code migration app, which will help you decide on which code can be deleted and which code actually has to be taken over to S4. And how does it work? Basically, you start with analyzing the custom code that is actually used in your production system. So you activate the execution statistics in your systems and record which custom objects are used during your daily processing. This recording only has a minor impact to your system performance. We've tested this in very large systems, but it's very important that you run this analysis during an extended time frame where also activities are performed that do not occur on a daily basis. For example, period end closing activities at the end of a month or at the end of a quarter, end of a year, whatever. But only this way you can make sure that all the statistical information is correct and no object is overlooked. And in the step 2, once you've done the recording, you leverage the new custom code migration app once you've converted to S4. And in this Fiori app, you can evaluate your custom code base and utilize these statistics that we recorded on the previous step to determine if objects are used or not. And based on that, we decide if it can be deleted. The tool then prepares a deletion transport, which can be incorporated into your conversion run for your development system. And these objects that you've selected to be deleted will then be excluded from the development conversion run. You'll be rid of them. The custom code migration app has further analytical capabilities to assess your custom code, and more about on this on the following slide. And as already mentioned, we see a lot of customers asking, hey, I'm going to S4, and S4 offers so much more functionality. Can we possibly combine an implementation of conversion of S4 with going back to SAP standard? And we already talked about the deletion of unused code. And let's say that was the easier part because it's easy to identify. But now let's focus on the actual used and relevant custom code in your system. I know it now might sound disappointing, but as of today, there's no magical tool that would tell you, okay, instead of this Z report or this application you've developed, you can now use SAP standard Fury X. There's no such thing. But what we can help you with as of today is the way how you look at custom code and how you decide with custom developments, which custom developments you actually want to replace in the first place. So what the custom code migration app is capable is it looks at the custom code from 2 dimensions. The horizontal axis will display how complex your custom code, your custom transactions, your development packages are. And your vertical axis here will display how often this code has been changed in the past. And most of the times we see a relationship between these two. So the more complex the code is, the more frequently it has to be adapted during maintenance. Once we have the custom code sort of plotted in this chart, you want to focus really on the area in the top right corner, because this is what we believe the cost driver in your current implementation, because it is the most complex code, it is the most changed and adapted code. So this is where your maintenance efforts are lying. So what do we do from here? With this information, you dig out the original functional specifications for these custom developments and ask your solution architects to work on an analysis of these custom code objects and custom code developments could be replaced with now available SAP standard functionality, which might have been missing in the past, or if they could be replaced with more modern technologies. Admittedly, this is not an easy job, and it requires multiple subject matter experts and also potentially some key user or business involvement. From the practical perspective, we see that up to 25% of these most expensive custom code developments can actually be replaced with SAP standard in S4. But again, this depends on your specific implementation. Number 9, the next tool that I want to mention is the retrofit tool in the context of conversion projects. Here we have to differentiate between 2 use cases. The first use case is the support of an early sandbox conversion and its custom code adaptation. So you can use the retrofit tool here to move already adapted code from a sandbox system to a later development system. This is useful, for example, if you've taken a copy of your production system, you adjusted some of the custom code, maybe not all of it, and then give it to the business as a kind of early testing or evaluation system. And you later decide, okay, we don't want this system to be our development system because there was some quick fixes applied or some adjustments done wrong, and you just want to have a clean start. Also, you might want to remove the sensitive data from the system and so on and so forth. So you might want to go for a new development system, and the retrofit tool supports you here in taking over the already adapted code from that sandbox system. The second use case is more of a traditional use case of retrofit. We usually see retrofit in a more complex landscape and complex project situation where we have a lot of ongoing maintenance changes due to, for example, parallel rollout projects. And in these scenarios, customers often consider to implement a so-called dual landscape scenario, which means that you have 2 development landscapes, one landscape for your current ERP implementation to support maintenance and maybe a rollout project, and you have a separate development track for your S4 conversion. And what needs to be considered here is that as soon as you set up the second S4 conversion system landscape, it is at risk to run out of sync. So you have to make sure that any changes that are applied on ECC or ERP are being taken over to the S4 landscape. And here retrofit can help. And what is new about this retrofit process is that it now includes the S4 custom code checks, which means that each custom code object that is retrofitted, it is previously analyzed if it can be retrofitted automatically or if it has to be adjusted due to S4 changes. And then it would be would have to be revised manually. For customizing changes, it's a bit more difficult. Here, the technical attributes of the customizing tables are compared, and only based on that information, it is decided whether something from a customizing perspective can be retrofitted automatically. But as said, it's only a technical comparison and not from a functional perspective. So it might be that from a functional perspective, some customizing might even not make sense. As said, retrofit is generally suitable for larger implementations with a larger custom code base and high maintenance throughput. And the feature is available in SAP Solution Manager, starting with version 7.2 SP08. The first results from customer implementations were quite promising, and we saw that up to 90% of objects could be retrofitted automatically. So you could really save here on the manual efforts and automate otherwise tedious work. Obviously, this again can vary from customers to customers and from scenario to scenario. Last but not least, we come to number 10, and this is one of the tools you will use at the very beginning of the S4 conversion project, the Readiness check tool. And I'm sure you've heard about it. I want to show or talk to you about 5 additions we have added in the past or are planning to add. Basically, the Readiness check has the objective to bring all the information relevant during your conversion project into one place. And we've continuously added features to the Readiness check. And let's start with what has been added for the simplification items. As you know, all customers have to review the simplification items and assess the impact to their system. And while some of the items are rather easy to overcome, others are more complex and require maybe even business process redesign. To reflect this, we have added a new capability in the solution, which will rank the simplification items applicable to your system based on the expected effort. This will help you to plan your project better and allocate resources accordingly. Next topic, the interface analysis. As you are aware, usually an ERP system is not the only system in an IT landscape. It's usually even the heart and soul of it, and it connects to potentially many other systems like an analytics system, CRM system, warehousing, production, you know the drill. So naturally you have to analyze if it's part of a conversion project, all these integration scenarios will still work. And in the past, this was a more manual exercise, which also required a lot of expertise in this domain. So we've added here some new functionality to help you with this and cut down the efforts and safeguard your project. The third item I want to mention today is the data quality issues around the business partner. We already talked about the address inconsistencies, but now the readiness checks will include also further checks. We'll go beyond the address data. So for example, will show inconsistencies like the text code assignments or number range issues. Also, it could show you where business partners and corresponding customer vendor entries may be out of sync. So be sure to check this out. One of the upcoming features, and I put in here the slide, the sticker lab preview, because it's not yet released, but we plan it for the next few months, so it should be introduced shortly. It's the section of the financial data quality. Which basically uses the data of the transaction I've shown you previously, which essentially checks the financial data quality in your system. There's multiple tabs. In the financial data inconsistency tabs, it will display identified inconsistencies per fiscal year and company code, and will help you identify any outliers. That means fiscal years and company codes with more issues compared to others, to see where really you have the most cleanup to do. On the Documents and Open Items tab, you can filter documents by fiscal year and company code again. They may reflect unfinished business transactions, but it's really helpful to get a list of issues and inconsistencies, and you can use the app to work on it with a structured manner. On the Expected Efforts tab, you can find an overview of the influencing factors that we see. that usually impact effort, duration, and cost for this cleanup activity. Additionally, all the issues are categorized into A, B, C, and D. Basically, that means and reflects if they can be resolved by the customers themselves, or if SAP services or even an SAP incident is needed. So here it depends. You will find this category in the app as soon as it is released, and it will be quite self-explanatory. The last readiness check feature I want to highlight for today is the so-called planned downtime estimator. The overall business downtime associated with a system conversion consists of several phases, and the phases listed in this section represent SAP's view on what's required for the conversion of an ERP system to S4. And the section basically displays the expected durations for the individual phases of the planned business downtime for a system conversion within the same data center. So this is not showing information about a data center move, because the scenario is special. The durations are provided based on two different types. The empirical values are commonly seen in practice for medium-sized systems. And then we have the estimated values, which represent reference values that are measured from similar systems. And the search algorithm for these reference estimations are based on your current data volume in the ERP system, the database type of your source system, and the target release of S4. And we give some information on how accurate we think this is and how well the statistical references are. So please be sure to share also your conversion runtime, as mentioned earlier, when I was talking about the Technical Downtime Optimization app, because this closes the loop here. The more data we get from customers, the more accurate the estimations will be, and everyone will profit from this. So yeah, that's about the readiness check. Please check out the latest version of the readiness check and click on the link provided in this session. We add new features with every release. I would like to conclude the session with a little commercial for our work stream within the movement team. We've created two white papers in collaboration with ASOC and DSAG. The first one is Mapping Your Journey to S4, which covers the most important aspects of your implementation project. And it's condensed experience from over 70 subject matter experts from SAP. And the second one is a guide to custom extensions in the context of S4. And this guide will help you to stay future-proof while extending your core. A lot of work was put into these documents, and as mentioned, dozens of SAP colleagues and partners helped to put it together. And our team will update these documents on a regular basis. So please use those guides. They have a lot of helpful information, and you can expect an update of these documents in the next couple of months. Before we end the session, I would want to highlight also other relevant TechEd sessions, which are related to the session that I just had and shared with you. You will see that the topics in those sessions are already also part of the session that I just did, but they will go into more detail. Also, please note that you can continue your learning experience from the TechEd with our SAP Learning Hub solution. You can use this information and work within your project to maybe see if this is something that would help you to kickstart your S4 implementation and increase the knowledge in your teams. It is a very useful tool that I've actually used myself, so I can definitely recommend this, also from a personal experience. With that, I would like to say thank you for listening to me today. You see here my contact information and the contact information of our program. So feel free to drop any kinds of questions via email to myself. I'll be happy to help if I can, and if not, I will forward you to the respective colleagues. Again, thank you, and I hope you've enjoyed the session.